Chapter 872 Hot Springs Manor. 6. She had food but was in a difficult position as she had never made rain before. At the thought of this, a piece of Mother God's memory was suddenly unsealed. It turned out that she could control not only the rain but also the wind, water, and all natural phenomena in the world. However, it depended on the range of her spiritual sense and the current conditions. For example, if there were no clouds, she could only control the water within the range of her divine sense. Moreover, the consumption of her divine sense was massive while doing this. Once overused, it would backfire. In severe cases, she could become crippled. This was also why Mother God chose to reincarnate after predicting the previous catastrophe. To put it bluntly, it was because she was envious of the various modern technologies and also because she lacked the strength. Thinking of the principle of rain, she immediately tried to look at the sky above the western continent. There were quite a lot of clouds, but the wind was also strong, so the rain came and went quickly. Not much rain fell on the western continent. She tried to block a light and thick cloud and controlled it to start raining. She did not expect to feel dizzy after holding on for less than 25 minutes. She immediately stopped, retreated, and said with lingering fear, "It seems that the power of nature is really irresistible." She tried to give the western continent some food but knew it was insufficient. She could only give up and check the situation in other places. After seeing that everything was still stable, she immediately retreated, took a quick shower, changed into her pajamas, and went to sleep. When she woke up again, she was woken up by Gu Qingrui. "What's wrong?" she asked when she met his worried gaze. "What's wrong with you? Why don't you look right? Also, it should be dawn outside now. We have to go out immediately." "In my dream," Guogua said. Zhouing turned her head and saw Guogua staring at her. "Yes, we're all in a dream now." Gu Qingrui paused momentarily, but he quickly understood what she meant and did not refute her. After all, Guogua was too young. If she revealed their secret, the couple would be in danger. "Guogua, wake up quickly. It's dawn." Zhouing saw this and got out of bed. She gave Guogua a blanket and carried her out of her interspace with Gu Qingrui. As expected, it was already bright outside, and they could smell the chives of the meat buns. "Dad, Mom, Guogua is awake. I smell buns." "Yes, Guogua is awake. Do you want to get up?" Zhouing asked. "Yes, Guogua wants to get up and eat buns." Guogua nodded. "All right, let's get up and eat the steamed buns with chives and eggs." After Zhouing finished speaking, she quickly helped her put on her clothes. After helping her put on her clothes, the husband and wife quickly got ready, too. Gu Qingrui opened the door and took the extinguished brazier outside to refuel. Guogua also ran out. Zhouing immediately tidied up the bed and kept the heater and the battery in her interspace. When Gu Qingrui returned, the couple washed up. After he was done, Gu Qingrui asked softly, "Babe, are you all right? You don't look too good." Zhouing told him about her attempt to control the rain last night. Gu Qingrui hugged her tightly after hearing that. "Don't mess around in the future. That's something that even Mother God is afraid of." "I know. I also understand what's going on. I won't mess around anymore." Zhouing nodded obediently. She didn't say that after waking up from a nap, her head was still groggy. Chapter 873 Hot Springs Village. 7. After the family of 3 finished their breakfast, the husband and wife brought Guogua to the vegetable field behind the house. The vegetable field was a circle of vegetables planted around the hot spring pool, and a simple shed was built with oilcloth. Because of the hot spring, the vegetables were quite fat and juicy. Mrs. Sun, who was picking vegetables in the vegetable field, said, "Greetings. Mistress, please take a look. Is there anything you want to eat at noon? I can just pick it back. Zhou stepped forward to take a look. The shed was not big, but it was quite well planted. She plucked 2 large eggplants and 2 large, ripe tomatoes. 1 steamed eggplant with garlic and 1 scrambled egg with tomatoes. You can arrange the rest. Yes. Mrs. Sun responded, put the vegetables she picked into the basket, and then got busy. Finally, Zhou picked another cucumber and washed it in the bucket at the side. She divided it into 3 sections, and the family of 3 ate 1 section each. Then, the family of 3 visited the hot spring, and Zhou and Gu Qingrui used disinfectant to clean the 2 pools. In the afternoon, after eating, they rested for a while. The family of 3 happily went to the hot spring. Zhou even took out a small swimming float and put it on Guogua. Guogua was so happy that she even splashed water on the couple from time to time. When Gu Qingrui saw this, he grabbed her and began to teach her how to swim. After a while, Guogua was like a small fish, swimming laps in the water. About 15 minutes later, Gu Qingrui pulled her out of the water, carried her to the shore, and quickly wrapped a towel around her. Water, play. Guogua immediately groaned. No, just soak for a while. Look, your skin has turned wrinkly. Gu Qingrui pointed at her skin, otherwise, he wouldn't have pulled her out. Guogua pursed her lips and was about to cry. Gu Qingrui immediately started drying her hair. Don't cry. Otherwise, I won't bring you to play next time. But, no buts. Guogua looked at Zhou sadly. Guogua, be good, Zhou said. Let's play again next time. If you're sick, you'll have to take bitter medicine. She said to Gu Qingrui, don't wipe her down yet. Wash her hair with clean water before wiping it. After Zhou finished speaking, she took out the bathtub she had prepared for Guogua in her space. She mixed it with warm water and bathed her. Only then did she dry herself and put on her clothes. After she was done dressing her, Zhou immediately put on her cotton pajamas and sent Guogua out to Mrs. Lin. After they returned, Gu Qingrui placed some medicinal herbs in the hot spring pool that could promote blood circulation and remove blood stasis. The 2 of them soaked in it for a while. They later went to the inner space to shower before returning to the front yard. When Guogua saw them enter, she immediately harumphed and turned to run into Mrs. Lin's room. Miss said that she's angry that you play without her, Mrs. Lin said. Got it. You go and watch her. Well, make her something delicious. Zhou nodded. After that, she went to the kitchen with Gu Qingrui and made a serving of shredded apples and a serving of Guoguo's favorite coconut sago. Zhou didn't feed her directly after she brought it into the house. Instead, she sat at the dining table and scooped a small bowl for Gu Qingrui and herself. Qingrui, try it. Is the coconut sago I made delicious? There are also some cassava bobas in it. It's very chewy and delicious. It looks delicious. Remember to save another bowl for me. Gu Qingrui smiled. Oh. Chapter 874 New Year Gifts. Guogua, who was still angry in the room and waiting for them to coax her, heard Gu Qingrui's words and smelled the unique sweet taste of coconut. She could no longer be bothered to be angry. She immediately got off the bed and jogged out. Mrs. Lin shook her head when she saw this and continued to embroider a handkerchief. After Guogua came out, she saw the apple on the table and gulped. She looked at Gu Qingrui, who was eating the coconut sago with big mouthfuls, and went up to shake his leg. Daddy, Guogua wants to eat too. It's useless to beg me. You have to find your mother. The bowl and spoon are with her. Gu Qingrui raised her head and said, Mommy. Guogua immediately ran over and pleaded. Bring a chair over yourself. Mommy will get some for you. After Zhou finished speaking, she stood up and scooped a bowl for her. Guogua immediately turned around and moved the small rattan chair that belonged to her. She climbed up and looked at Zhou with her hands on the table. Zhou hugged her and sat down. There's no rush. Eat slowly. There's still apples. After saying that, she handed her a small piece of shredded apple that was now crispy like candied haws. It tasted sweet and sour after taking a bite. Guogua immediately threw her anger to the back of her head and started eating with a silly smile. Gu Qingrui shook his head when he saw this. At the same time, he made up his mind to let her eat all the delicacies in the world. Otherwise, she would be easily baited by some pig-headed boy one day because of a delicious meal. At night, Zhou went into her interspace to check on the situation on the western continent. Due to her intervention yesterday, there were indeed some places that had rained. However, other than the area she had specially taken care of, the rest of it did not have much rain. At the same time, she primarily surveyed the living conditions of the people there. It wasn't exactly good, but most areas still had food. Therefore, she gave 2 months' worth of food, mainly cornmeal and brown rice, to those who could no longer afford to celebrate the new year. Additionally, she gave out some chicken eggs and other wild eggs stocked up in her interspace, ensuring that everyone had at least 2 of each. She didn't care about the rest. After that, the family of 3 had a good time in the manor for a few days. Niu Lirong and the guards also took time to use the other pool to soak themselves in the hot spring. Before they left, everyone soaked in the hot spring once more before rushing back to the capital. After returning to the residence, Gu Qingrui rested for a while before going to his hospital. After Zhou handed Guogua over to Mrs. Lin, she called Niu Fugue and asked, "How has the residence been recently?" "It's pretty good. I received 2 New Year gifts from 2 families and returned one to each of them per your request. By the way, the gifts from Master's family have also arrived. This is the list of gifts. Please take a look." After Niu Fugue finished speaking, he gave her a list. Zhou took it and read it carefully. There were a bunch from Mr. Gu and also from the Patriarch. Mr. Gu gave her the specialties of the north and south. Among them were 50 white rabbit skins and all kinds of bacon, snacks, tea leaves, and so on. Finally, there were some small toys for Guogua. As well as the core of the New Year gift, 6 pairs of pearl flowers. The Patriarch's gift was much simpler. There were 2 sets of gold jewelry, 1 big and 1 small. He gave Gu Qingrui a set of stationery and 100 pounds of vegetable oil. After reading it, she smiled, put the letter away, and asked, "Is there anything else?" "Nothing else. By the way, the accounts of the various places have already begun to be summarized. Especially the cake shop. General Zhou said it would only be tallied until December, and today's payment had already been settled. A total of 308,652 taels of silver. Chapter 875 Bountiful Returns, alright. In the future, you just have to remember the settlement date every year. Zhou said. Understood. If Mistress has no other instructions, I'll take my leave. Niu Fugue said. You may leave. It's the end of the year. Remember to be careful. Yes. Niu Fugue nodded and turned to leave. Over the next few days, Zhou saw that the weather was cold, so she asked the servant girls to help the people in the kitchen prepare the New Year's food, such as steamed buns, bean buns, rice cakes, as well as all kinds of braised meat, cold dishes, and more. This way, the people in the kitchen could relax for 2 days during the new year. She didn't stay idle either. Taking advantage of Gu Chenglin's return, she took out 5 cows, 10 pigs, 10 sheep, and a number of chickens and ducks from her interspace. She also began to prepare dishes for the new year. On the 27th day of the month, after Zhou had prepared all the cooked food, she took out 2 roast chickens, 2 roast ducks, 2 large pieces of spiced beef, a braised pig's head, a pig's leg, and 2 large jars of wine to send to second Uncle Gu and the others. On the 28th, the accounts of the various manors were sent over, so Zhou began to check the accounts. Not long after, Qiuxiang ran in and informed him. "Mistress, Manager Gu is back. Do you want to see him now or wait a little longer?" "Let him come in directly." Zhou nodded. "Yes, mistress." Qiuxiang ran out. Soon, Guzheng came in with a box and bowed. "Greetings, mistress. Have a seat. Did everything go well outside?" "Thanks to you, other than spending some effort gathering the raw materials at the beginning, everything else went smoothly. These are the accounts from the capital and Pingyang residence. Please take a look." Guzheng placed a box on the ground. "How are the profits?" Zhou nodded. "It's not a problem for sales in the capital to earn 1,000 taels of silver a day, especially during the period before the new year. However, Hangzhou province is doing a little worse but still managed to get 1,000 taels a day before the new year. That's normal, as there are many rich families in the capital. Do you have any plans for next year?" "I plan to go to Dongyang province in the first half of next year. I'll build a large workshop in Qingshui town, our hometown in Dongyang. The transportation there is convenient and can cover 4 or 5 provinces. As for the second half of the year, I want to go back to my hometown, Fuzhou." Guzheng said hesitantly. "Go back and take revenge." "Yes, go back and take revenge. Some things should be done then. Go ahead. Even if you're involved in a lawsuit, ensure you stand on the side with more reasoning. Don't let hatred blind your eyes. You're still young. You can always start all over again. This lowly one will remember it. I will not act rashly again. Emichim, you can leave. You can stay in the guest house and have a good rest." "Yes, thank you, mistress." Guzheng responded and turned to walk out. After he left, Zhou first took a look at the accounts from the manor. She later also checked the accounts of the rouge shop. She realized the rouge was selling quite well, at least not worse than any other competitor. The best products were the daily necessities, especially the soaps, shampoos, and hair tonics. They were the best sellers, followed by toners, moisturizers, and her special lipstick. After that, she carefully tallied the accounts. The capital's income in the past year was as high as 300,000 taels. Hangzhou province's income was a little lower. However, in just 2 to 3 months, they had also earned 50,000 taels, totaling 400,000 taels. After checking the banknotes and confirming everything tallied, she put them aside. She started to plan what new products she would launch next year. Chapter 8 76 Guests, Qingrui. Do many people go to your hospital for skin disease treatment? Zhou asked after dinner. Or rather, acne, spots, and so on. Gu Qingrui immediately understood that she wanted to launch a new skincare product. After pondering for a moment, he said, "Acre are rare cases, but some serious cases require a doctor's treatment. As for spots, there are quite a lot. However, it was still difficult to see them with makeup on. Therefore, if you want to improve your skincare products, you could start with anti-wrinkle products. There would be more people buying that." Anti-wrinkle. Zhou nodded in agreement. In ancient times, women got married early and had children earlier. Naturally, they would start to worry early. Anyone in their 30s would more or less start to have wrinkles. So, such a product would garner a wider audience. "I'll listen to you then, but you have to give me the prescription." She nodded. "Don't worry, I'll give it to you after the new year. Oh, right, Sun Hongyang and Uncle Lu have arrived today. There's a high chance that they'll come to the residence for a gathering tomorrow. Get someone to arrange a table of high-class dishes. Uncle Lu is here. I haven't seen him for 3 to 4 years. Yeah, according to Brother Zhou, he transferred Uncle Lu here. After some discussion, he plans to send him to the northern continent next year to take charge of the business there. Ah, he's getting promoted. Yeah, it's not easy there. That's why Brother Zhou chose him. By the way, speaking of Brother Zhou, how's Zhou Huai's marriage going? Has it been decided yet? I haven't heard anything. Have you heard anything? No, ever since you guys returned to the capital, Mingyu has been so busy that her feet haven't touched the ground. I haven't seen her for more than a month. I guess there's no result. However, his marriage shouldn't be taken lightly, and it still depends on the emperor's wishes. I'm afraid the old general has to consider it carefully. Zhou Ying nodded after listening and threw it to the back of her mind. The next day, when Zhou Ying was almost done preparing the food, Manager Lu, Sun Hongliang, and even Zhou Weiming's family of 3 came. Zhou Ying immediately went forward and invited everyone into the house. Gu Qingrui, who was in his study, heard the voices and immediately walked out. Brother Zhou, Uncle Lu, and Brother Sun, please have a seat. What tea would you like to drink? Zhou Ying asked. Chrysanthemum, I guess. I've been a little busy recently, so I'm a little hearty. Zhou Huaiming replied. Alright, wait a moment. After Zhou Ying finished speaking, she asked Niuli to make a pot of tea. Auntie, where's Sister Guogua? Oh. Zhuang looked around the room but did not see Guogua, so he ran over and pulled her sleeve. Guogua is playing with building blocks. Do you want to play with her? I want. Seeing this, Zhou Ying asked Qiu Xiang to bring him and his nanny to the west courtyard. Oh. Guogua is so young, and you're letting her sleep alone? Mingyu asked in surprise. No, I've been busy recently and couldn't care for her. She ran to the west courtyard every day and stuck to Qinglin. It's good that there's someone to help you look after her. Mingyu nodded. Did you prepare roast duck for lunch? She asked. I want to eat roast duck. Of course. Not only is there roast duck, but there's also roast chicken. What else do you want to eat? Zhou Ying asked. Hurry up and tell me. Otherwise, it'll be too late. I heard that there's a Buddha jumps over the wall dish that recently came out. It's so seductive that people have lost their souls. As expected of you and your husband, you know everything about good food. However, I'm afraid you won't be able to eat it today. Buddha jumps over the wall is a soup that would take more than a day to prepare. That's why I can't make it, and the restaurant is all reserved. If you want to eat, I can only get someone to send a portion to the residence at noon tomorrow. Chapter 877 An opinion, so troublesome. Mingyu immediately wilted when she heard that. There's no other way. It's not easy to make. If it isn't braised long enough, there won't be any flavor. Oh, right, I'll make baby vegetable soup later. Zhou Ying said. As for the Buddha jumps over the wall soup, you can eat it tomorrow. Baby vegetable. Yes, to put it bluntly, it's a soup made with cabbage as its core. I'll learn from you. Let's go. After Zhou Ying finished speaking, she took her to the kitchen and started to get busy. After Gu Qingrui and the others finished the formalities, they went to the study. Brother Gu, how do you think we can quickly gain a foothold on the northern continent? Zhou Huaiming asked after sitting down. That's right. If things go wrong and I screw things up, my old bones will die there. I can't say for sure, but you can start with 2 aspects. The first will be merchants. Merchants valued profits. As long as their interests were involved, they would not ruin your business, even if they didn't side with you. Secondly, the poor. No matter where they are, as long as you unite the people at the bottom, you can restrain those nobles very well. But dignitaries have money and power. They also hold the lives and deaths of people in their hands. Manager Lu commented. He had experienced this. If it weren't for the money in his hands, he wouldn't have been able to live so peacefully in Dongyang. What do you think of the beggars on the street? Useful tools. Then what if all the beggars in Great Ming united? Zhou Huiming and Manager Liu's expressions finally changed after hearing this. Beggars were inconspicuous, but they walked the streets daily and sometimes knew more than specialized informants. If they were to join forces, it would be terrifying. So, don't underestimate anyone. Often, some small characters can achieve great things. However, you have to take things slowly on the northern continent. You can't let them see your intentions the moment you reach there. After the last battle, the northern continent might not recover for 3 to 5 years. Therefore, we can use these 3 to 5 years to infiltrate them slowly. Infiltrate. After Manager Lu heard this, he more or less understood his intention. During lunch, Zhou Ying and Mingyu didn't join them. Instead, they ate with Gu Qinglin and the 2 children. The dishes were simple. There were 6 dishes and 1 soup for each table. They were roast duck, roast chicken, steamed yellow croaker, steamed vermicelli, cabbage with mustard seeds, jellyfish salad, and finally, baby cabbage soup. After the meal, they chatted briefly before Zhou Huiming and Manager Lu left. Sun Hongliang took the account book and went to find Niu Fugue. Meanwhile, Zhou Ying and Mingyu brought Guogua and Zhuang along and arrived a little late. After they left, Chuxiang came over with a box. Mistress, this is the New Year gift left behind by Manager Lu. Oh, do you have a list? Zhou Ying looked at the heavy box and asked. Yes. After Chuxiang finished speaking, she handed her a gift list. Zhou Ying glanced at them. They were leather, fox skin, mink skin, deer skin, and wolf skin. It seemed that Manager Lu had already made a trip to the northern continent. Put the things away, she said. Use the deer skin to make cotton boots for Guoguo quickly. Yes, this servant will do it now. Chuxiang nodded and went away with Kuihua. She asked Niu Fugue to go to the restaurant personally and order 2 servings of Buddha jumps over the wall soup, giving one to Mingyu and the other to Manager Lu. In the blink of an eye, it was the afternoon of the 30th. The accounts for her many restaurants, manors, and workshops were here. Chapter 878 Independence Showing opened the account books and saw that the total was 1.8 million taels. The restaurant and manor in the capital amounted to 1.2 million taels, while Qinshui Town's restaurant and workshop totaled 600,000 taels of silver. She asked offhandedly, does it mean that we earned less in the capital compared to last year? Yes, there's a drop in business in the restaurant here. If we hadn't come out with the new dish before the new year, Buddha jump over the wall soup, I'm afraid the revenue would have been lower. Does it mean that the customers are getting tired of the current dishes we're offering? Niu Fugue didn't reply, but his meaning was clear. Zhou Ying paused momentarily before adding, all right, why don't you call over the chefs here for the next 2 days so I can teach them 2 new dishes? That would be great. With new dishes, our restaurant will be booming with business in no time. I hope so. Remember to be more careful in managing the restaurant so that there are no problems. This lowly one understands. Alright, go on ahead. The bonus will be the same as last year, but remember to add Gu Jing to the list, his bonus is 1,000 taels of silver. I understand. After he left, Zhouing recalculated the accounts and checked that there was no error before preparing the red packets for everyone's bonuses. Night came, and everyone ate a scrumptious banquet. Everyone had the same dishes, but the only difference was that the main table had 8 dishes while the rest had 6. They sent off second Uncle Gu and his family on the second day of the new year. Gu Qingrui wanted to speak to Zhouing about something, but then he saw Guoguo in Zhou Ying's arms. He suddenly recalled the many times that Guoguo ruined his good times with Zhou Ying during the night. He went ahead and took Guoguo in his arms and asked, "Guoguo, how old are you after the new year?" Guoguo chuckled and replied, "Guoguo is 4 years old." "That's great. Shouldn't you sleep independently now that you aren't 3 years old anymore?" "What is independent?" "Well, you will be sleeping alone in another room. If you're scared, you can try it out by sleeping with Mrs. Lin." "No. I want to sleep with Mommy." Guoguo struggled and wanted to get out of Gu Shengru's arms. But her efforts were unsuccessful, so she could only look pleadingly at Zhou Ying. Zhou Ying recalled the times that Guoguo had woken up in her inner space and decided it was also time for her independence. Otherwise, it would be troublesome when the day arrived when Guoguo realized that Zhou Ying's inner space was no longer a dream. "Come on, put Guoguo down." Zhou Ying went ahead and took Guoguo from Gu Shengru's arms. "Guoguo, didn't you envy Uncle Qinglin sleeping alone just a few days ago? Why are you afraid of sleeping alone now?" "No. I want Mommy." Guoguo hugged Zhou Ying's neck tightly and huffed. "Relax, before you strangle Mommy." Zhou Ying patted her back and waited for Guoguo to relax her arms. "Mommy misses Guoguo too. But when the eldest princess laughs at you for sleeping with Mommy when you're so old, don't come crying to me." "No. Nan Nan won't laugh at Guoguo, she loves me." Guoguo said it firmly. "Who knows? Don't you know that Yang Yang is also sleeping with his nanny?" Gu Qingrui added. "Ah, Zhuang Zhuang too. He's also sleeping with his nanny. Remember your 2 older brothers from your uncle's side? They are sleeping on their own now." Guoguo rolled her eyes at Gu Qingrui. She didn't want to sleep alone, so she crawled into Zhou Ying's arms and gave Gu Qingrui the side eye. Gu Qingrui wanted to persuade her further, but Zhou Ying shook her head. This was because she noticed that Guoguo wasn't as adamant about this proposal as at the start. This matter must be taken slowly, or it might hurt Guoguo's feelings. Gu Qingrui saw that and said, "Daddy is sorry, okay, Daddy won't ask Guoguo to sleep alone again." "Oh, right. There's a cute pony in the backyard, do you want to take a look?" Chapter 879 Coaxing the child. Guoguo immediately looked at him, but she instantly crawled back when she remembered what had happened just now. Gu Qingrui smiled bitterly. It seemed that this little fellow bore a grudge against him. Then, he gently said, "If you really don't want to go, then I'll go now. You can't regret it by then." After saying that, he turned around and walked out. As he walked, he deliberately made his footsteps heavier. Zhou Ying was secretly amused by that and looked at Guoguo. "Guoguo, are you really not going? I heard that the pony is very beautiful. I was going to let you raise it, but if you're not willing, then forget it." "Mommy, go." Guoguo immediately raised her head and said. "But Mommy still has a lot of things to do, especially preparing delicious food for you tonight. You should go with your daddy." Zhou Ying placed her on the ground after she finished speaking. "Mommy, I want to eat flour cakes." Guoguo hesitated momentarily and said. "All right, Mommy will make you a rose cake in a while." Zhou Ying nodded. Guoguo then followed Gu Qingrui out with a straight face. Gu Qingrui heaved a sigh of relief when he saw this. He helped her put on her cloak and pulled her hand as they walked toward the stable. Guogua entered the stable and saw the pony kneeling on the ground and drinking milk. She was shocked and shouted in surprise, "Little pony." "Yes, a little pony. Isn't it cute?" Guogua nodded and was about to walk forward. Gu Qingrui quickly pulled her back. "We have to wait for the little pony to finish eating before we get to play with it." Guogua could only stand at the side and watch. After the pony ate its fill, Gu Qingrui let her go. However, to prevent the pony from kicking Guogua, he had her feed it from the side. Guogua went up and started playing with the pony. The little pony was also playful, so the girl and horse quickly got together. Gu Shengru's eyes hurt when he saw the cloak on her body getting ruined. But since it was rare to see her having fun, he did not stop her. At most, he would wash the cloak for her at night. After Zhouing finished making the rose cake, she tried to make a sweetheart cake. She had taken the shares in Zhou Weiming's cake shop, so she needed to come up with 2 recipes a year. However, getting the temperature she needed to bake it using a traditional oven was challenging. After a moment of experimentation, she finally baked it to the temperature she wanted. She quickly recorded it down together with the recipe. Next was the restaurant's menu. This time, she mainly prepared seafood. First, seafood was in season, and second, it could be sold at a high price. The first dish was crab cake with egg white sauce. The second dish was the pork tripe stew chicken. She planned for a lobster dish for the third, but she didn't know if the ingredients were easy to find. If it were easy to find, she would push it out. Otherwise, she would try using crayfish. On the 6th day of the Lunar New Year, Gu Qingrui finally coaxed Guogua to be as intimate with him as before. However, it was finally back to the opening of his hospital. Therefore, no matter how reluctant Gu Qingrui was, he still put Guogua down and went to work. On the 8th day of the Lunar New Year, Shizhu gave birth to a fat boy. Zhouing saw this and gave them a small courtyard in North City alone. She asked them to move out so they could have a private home in the future. When everyone saw this, each and every one of them worked even harder. On the 10th day of the Lunar New Year, Zhouing gave Zhou Huiming the rose cake, sweetheart cake, and egg yolk pastry recipes. On the 15th was the Lantern Festival. Zhouing brought tonics, pregnancy-soothing pills, rose cakes, sweetheart cakes, egg yolk pastries, the eldest prince's favorite butterfly cakes, and the Empress Dowager's favorite date cakes into the palace with Guogua. Chapter 880 Taking care of the children. When the Grand Empress Dowager saw them enter, it was as if she had seen her savior. She quickly stood up and greeted them. "Zhouing, you're here. Sit, sit." "Thank you, Grand Empress Dowager. These are some snacks I brought and your favorite date cakes. Try them and see if they suit your taste." After Zhouing finished speaking, she handed the basket to Nanny Lu. Good, I'm getting hungry. Nanny Lu, quickly serve me a piece of the date cake," the Grand Empress Dowager said. "Imperial Great-Grandma, Nanan's house hasn't been built yet. Help me build it before you eat," the eldest princess said. However, Yang, sitting at the side, found it funny and pushed the house down. The eldest princess immediately glared at Yang with her hands on her hips. However, Yang didn't know that he had made a mistake. Instead, he chuckled happily and said, "Sister, fall down. It's all your fault." The eldest princess huffed angrily and said to her nanny, "Hurry up and take him away. I don't want to play with him anymore." Nan, you have to be patient. You can only build the house after you settle down and think about it carefully. Now that your brother has pushed it down, you don't have to worry about it. Let's start from scratch, and it'll definitely be better than before. Zhouing finally understood why the Grand Empress Dowager welcomed her so warmly. It turned out that she was tired of looking after these children. Nan Nan, Auntie, and Guoguo will help you build it, okay? However, your younger brother is still young and doesn't know any better, but we can't leave him alone. Let him and Guoguo help you out on the side, okay? Auntie, I want to build a bigger house this time. The eldest princess looked at Zhou and nodded. Sure, but you need a stable foundation to build a house. The house you built just now collapsed because of the unstable foundation. Let's use the gray one as the foundation first, Zhou said. You three find all the gray pieces. The eldest princess and Guoguo immediately started searching. Zhou took a gray piece and waved it in front of Yang Yang. Yang Yang, look for the one in Auntie's hand. Yang Yang laughed as he drooled and searched, finding 2 gray pieces. Seeing this, Zhou gathered all the gray pieces together and began to build the foundation. She later asked them to find blue walls, red tiles, and green edges. However, the last piece of green was in Yang Yang's hands. He refused to hand over the final piece, no matter what. The 3 kids were about to fight. Yang Yang, Zhou tried to say, is the house Auntie built nice? Nice. Yang Yang nodded. But the one in your hand is all that's left. Can you give it to me? This way, Yang Yang can move in after we build the house. When Yang Yang heard this, he grabbed the building block and ran to the Grand Empress Dowager's side. You little tyrant, if you continue to be like this, they won't play with you anymore. Yang Yang didn't care about this and just wouldn't hand it over. When the eldest princess saw this, she pulled Guoguo over. Humph, stinky little brother. Guoguo and I will never play with you again. Zhou was getting a headache when she saw this. She knew that Yang Yang was still young and only knew a little about what they were talking about. It was impossible to reason with him. She could only wash her hands and take a piece of rose cake. Do you want some, Yang Yang? She asked. Yang Yang's eyes lit up when he smelled the fragrance of the flowers. Give this to your sister, Zhou said with a smile. Auntie will give you the cake. Yang Yang looked at the building blocks in his hand, then at the rose cake in Zhou Ying's hand. In the end, he handed the building blocks to her. Chapter 881 Family Talk. Zhou smiled when she saw this. She hugged him, placed the building block on the house, and pushed it gently. In the end, the building blocks were only slightly misplaced, unlike before, where they collapsed with a touch. She looked at the eldest princess and Guoguo. Why don't you two investigate why the house didn't collapse this time? After saying that, she carried Yang Yang to wash up and then ate 2 rose cakes with him. The eldest princess and Guoguo also began to study the house structure. The Grand Empress Dowager heaved a sigh of relief. Zhou, you're as patient as ever. I'm getting old and getting weaker. You're not old at all. It's just that you can't adapt to it in a short period of time. However, it's troublesome with too many children here. I'll think of some new things to send to them later. It must have been hard on you. The Grand Empress Dowager said. After chatting for a while, Zhou left Guoguo to play with the eldest princess while she carried Yang Yang and brought some tonics and snacks to the Phoenix Palace. After entering, he saw Gu Wanning sighing. She bowed and asked, "What's wrong? Why are you sighing? It's not good for the baby." Mommy, Mommy. At the same time, Yang Yang raised his arms and shouted. You little thing, can't you just let me relax for a while? Gu Wanning took him over. When Yang Yang saw this, he smiled without worry and even jumped happily into her arms. Gu Wanning placed him on the chair. Be good. Yang Yang, you must be hungry. What do you want to eat? He has already eaten 2 pieces of cake. Just give him some water. Zhou said. Warm a bowl of milk for him, Gu Wanning said to the nanny. Yes. the nanny responded and turned to walk out. Soon, the nanny came in with half a bowl of milk and fed it to Yang Yang. Let's go, sister-in-law. Let's talk inside, Gu Wanning said. Zhou nodded and handed the basket to Chun Shi before entering the inner room with her. Did you leave Guoguo with the Grand Empress Dowager? Gu Wanning asked while someone made them tea. Yes, I saw that she was playing very well with the eldest princess, so I didn't bring her over. That's great since eldest princess only has one playmate, Guoguo. It's very lively outside today, isn't it? Gu Wanning asked. I'm not sure. When I came out, there was no movement on the street. Maybe it's still early. It'll be lively after lunch. Remember to look after Qinglin. Something always happens during the Lantern Festival every year, Gu Wanning was worried. I will. Zhou nodded. Don't worry. She looked at her stomach and asked, oh, right, what did Imperial Physician Lu say? Do you know if this child is a boy or a girl? AG, she's most likely a princess. That's good. Having a son and a daughter is perfect. What about you guys? Guoguo isn't young anymore. It's time for another one. Let fate decide. Zhou paused. After you give birth, don't have any more children over the next few years. It's bad for your body, you'd better nourish your body well. I will. After giving birth THS time, I'll have to care for 3 children. I'm afraid I won't have the energy to have another child for a few years. That's right. Taking care of a child is both troublesome and laborious. I saw that the Grand Empress Dowager was having trouble caring for the 2 children just now. Not to mention her, I'm also having a headache now. 1-0. Chapter 882 Lantern Festival 1. The two of them chatted for a while. In the end, Zhou finally knew why Gu Wanning was sighing. In 2 days, which was the 17th, King Ning would return to the Western continent with their surrender conditions. Next was the upcoming concubine selection. However, the Northern and Western continents sent documents stating that they would send beautiful women over during the selection. Originally, the Emperor had wanted to choose 1 or 2 to deal with one of the officials, but now, perhaps 4 or 5. Most importantly, the women sent over couldn't be dealt with lightly or heavily. It was difficult for her as the Empress. Zhou really sympathized with her. With 4 or 5 women coming in at once when she was about to give birth, who knew what would happen then? I think the Emperor knows what to do about this. If you can't make up your mind, you can discuss it with the Emperor. However, if they go overboard, don't hold back. Just remember that they are a defeated country. No matter how much the Emperor dotes on them, he won't let them pass you. Even more so, the Emperor would not let them have children, but she did not say this openly. But they represent the Western and Northern continents. You should indeed be wary if it was just one of them, but it would be easier for you to deal since there are 2. Just sit and watch them fight. Anyways. Your urgent task is to guard the Emperor's 3 children. Don't think about anything else. Otherwise, you're just asking for trouble. Zhou took out 2 red packets and handed them to her. These are the 2 children's New Year's money. Before they enter the palace, you must build the Phoenix Palace into an iron bucket as soon as possible. Don't stir trouble, but when trouble comes knocking on your door, you must have the ability to counterattack. The Emperor has a lot of things to consider, and he can't protect everything. Gu Wanning understood what she meant after listening to her. She smiled and took the red packets. Chatting with sister-in-law is so relaxing. You're just always steering yourself into a dead end. In the future, you have to be calm and analyze the pros and cons. All right. After that, the 2 of them chatted for a while more. Zhou saw that Gu Wanning had completely let go, so she gave her a few words of advice before leaving the palace with Guogua. After lunch, Qiuxiang, Niulirong, Chuanxiang, and Dongxiang ran in from the kitchen. "Mistress, we want to take half a day off." "Well, go out and look at the lanterns tonight." "Sure, but be wary of the demons and ghosts at night. You must travel together and don't get separated." "Yes." The four of them looked at each other and nodded. "Go. Be sure to come back before 10 o'clock." "Thank you, mistress." The four of them responded and retreated. After a while, Gu Qingrui rushed back and said, "The streets are really lively with many kinds of lanterns. Let's take Guogua out for a walk tonight." "Definitely. I heard that it hasn't been held for 7 years. People have been working hard to prepare this year." Zhou hesitated for a moment. "Let's ask the manor to prepare dinner early." "Well, leave early and return early after we're done eating." "All right, bringing Guogua along for dinner outside is inconvenient." Gu Qingrui nodded in agreement. Otherwise, if something happened, he would regret it to death. They did not expect that just as they put down their rice bowls, the emperor walked in with Gu Wanning. The couple immediately stood up and bowed together with Gu Qinglin. "Your Majesty, Wanning, don't tell me you want to join in the fun too?" Gu Qingrui asked after he got up. Chapter 883 Lantern Festival 2. I haven't come out once since I entered the palace. Now's the opportunity to come out and take a walk today. However, we won't go out and stroll around with great fanfare. Instead, we want to go to your restaurant and eat while looking at the lanterns." Gu Wanning said. "Has the palace made any arrangements?" Gu Qingrui looked at the emperor and asked. No one could guarantee that the capital was really safe. If someone made trouble tonight, it would be a big problem. "Don't worry. Guard Chu and the others are still in the palace. The Sun family has already brought over the eldest princess. The Grand Empress Dowager and Yang will be here soon." Gu Qingrui knew that it was useless to say anything after hearing that. Instead, he stood up and said, "You guys chat first. I'll go and make the arrangements." After saying that, he turned around and walked out. He couldn't let anything happen to them in his restaurant. "Sorry to trouble you. When we came out, each of us brought 10 guards. I've also informed the Yen family. I just want the people to have a perfect lantern festival without any accidents." The emperor nodded. Gu Qingrui heaved a sigh of relief after hearing that. However, he still went to find Lin Yiqian and Lin Yifan to make detailed arrangements. "Guogua, do you still remember Uncle?" The emperor handed Guogua a string of carved red coral beads. "Remember. Uncle is the father of sister Nan Nan and brother Yang. You're also the emperor, and give Guogua the fragrant and crispy fish bones." Guogua nodded. However, she did not take the bracelet. Instead, she looked at Zhou. After Zhou smiled and nodded, she accepted it. "Not bad, you have a good memory. Do you like fish bones? Uncle will ask eunuch Qian to send some over tomorrow." "Yes, I do." Guogua nodded immediately. "Is there anything else you want to eat?" "I'll send all of them over tomorrow." Egg rolls, and Guogua thought about it seriously. Zhou raised her head and knocked on her forehead. "You little glutton. 2 is enough. I'll make the rest for you." "Okay." Guogua covered her head and pouted. "Qinglin, is there anything you want to eat?" The emperor asked Gu Qinglin with a smile. "Just bring some for Guogua. Cousin-in-law already makes all kinds of snacks for us every day." "All right, if there's anything you want to eat, just let me know." "Oh, right. Are you going to enroll in the academy tomorrow?" he suddenly asked. That's right. From tomorrow until the capital examination ends, I'm afraid I won't be able to come back very often. Let's go. I was just about to test if you have made any progress in your studies. The emperor stood up. Gu Chenglin's face fell when he heard that. Zhou Ying pushed him up and said, hurry up. It's a rare opportunity for the emperor to test you personally. You have to cherish it and check your shortcomings. Got it. Seeing this, Gu Qinglin could only resign himself to his fate and bring the emperor back to his courtyard. After they left, Zhou Ying looked at Gu Wanning and asked, you didn't cause a ruckus to leave the palace, did you? No, it was the emperor who suggested it. When I received the news, I was shocked. That's good. There will definitely be a lot of people tonight. Try to walk less with your big belly. Zhou Ying was immediately curious, as she didn't want to believe that the emperor was just coming out to look at the lanterns. She just didn't know what he was planning. Not long after, the Grand Empress Dowager rushed over with Yang Yang. Other than Nanny Lu, there was also a 16 or 17-year-old girl. Greetings, Grand Empress Dowager. Zhou Ying hurriedly stood up and greeted her. Chapter 884 Lantern Festival 3. Qin Weiwen greets Madame Gu, the young girl said. Hello, Miss Qin. Please take a seat. After Zhou Ying finished speaking, she helped the Grand Empress Dowager sit down. Weiwen is the granddaughter of my second brother. After entering the capital this time, she won't be leaving. Zhou Ying, please help me care for her outside the palace. Definitely. Zhou Ying smiled and nodded. At the same time, she was a little confused. What did this person mean by coming over? Could it be that she wanted to participate in the consort selection later? Fortunately, the Grand Empress Dowager mainly talked about the Lantern Festival and did not mention Qin Weiwen again. Very soon, Gu Qingrui rushed back. When he saw the Grand Empress Dowager, he quickly bowed, and after a few polite greetings, he went to look for the emperor. When it was dark, the group dressed up and took a carriage to the restaurant. When they arrived, Gu Qingrui brought them directly to a private room on the second floor facing the street. What would you like to eat? Zhou Ying asked after everyone had taken their seats. Order whatever you want. Tonight, it's our treat. No need. Someone is treating tonight. The emperor smiled. Then, he took the menu and ordered a pot of dahong pao and some snacks. Just as Zhou Ying was about to get up and go out, she saw the entire Zhou family walk in. Zhuang Zhuang. Guogua immediately got out of Zhou Ying's arms and walked over. Guogua. Zhuang Zhuang immediately struggled out of old Master Zhou's arms. Ah, Guogua, Zhuang Zhuang, Yang Yang shouted excitedly. All right, this is going to be lively. Mingyu smiled. It's hard for them to get together and even harder for them to remember each other. Let them go and play. The Grand Empress Dowager smiled. As soon as she finished speaking, the three nannies immediately took the three little kids to the side to play. Do you want to order now or later? Zhou Ying got up and asked. Since they're here, let's order now. Tea and snacks will be served last, the emperor said, then turned to Zhou Huaiming. You're the host today, you should order first. Is it too late to order the Buddha jumps over the wall soup? Zhou Huaiming asked. Ever since he had eaten it last time, the fresh and fragrant taste was still fresh in his memory. Unfortunately, he had never had the time to eat more. I'll have to go and see if there's any. Zhou Ying replied. Zhou Huaiming nodded, then picked up the menu and ordered more dishes. 8 treasures chicken, garlic pork ribs, steamed base, stewed beef with tomato in pot, fried eggs with wood fungus, and small rapeseed with garlic. Then, he handed the menu to the others and asked them to order something else. Finally, the emperor added another dish of braised pork intestines. The Grand Empress Dowager ordered a serving of lotus root sandwich cake. Old General Zhou added a dish of twice-cooked pork, while Zhou Huaiyu added a serving of roasted lamb chops. Mingyu, Wanyu, Qinglin, and Miss Qin, what do you want? Zhou Ying asked. I'll have some pork trotters. I want to eat that, Mingyu said. Give me a mushroom soup, Gu Wanning replied. Some shredded salad, please. Qin Weiwen replied. I already ate something when I was at home. I'll just eat a few mouthfuls with everyone later. I won't order more. Gu Qinglin said. Alright, wait a moment. I'll be back soon. After Zhou Ying finished speaking, she took the menu that she had ordered and turned around to walk out. There's also the Buddha jumps over the wall soup. Remember to ask if there are any left. Zhou Huaiming reminded Zhou Ying. Got it. After Zhou Ying finished speaking, she went to the kitchen in person. She did not expect one Buddha jumps over the wall soup to remain. Someone else had ordered it and did not come. Zhou Ying asked for it but realized that 13 dishes and one soup did not sound auspicious. She personally made some cucumber salad with yuba, stir-fried seaweed shreds, and a serving of green onion salad with chilled pig ears. As for the main dishes, it was already more than enough. Chapter 885 Lantern Festival 4. Zhou Ying quickly got someone to serve the Buddha jumps over the wall soup and the cold dishes. Zhou Ying even personally brought 5 bottles of wine. When the 3 little fellows saw that there was food, they immediately returned and sat obediently in the arms of the adults, waiting for the dishes to be served. The Buddha jumps over the wall soup immediately attracted everyone's attention as soon as it appeared. However, Zhou Ying and her husband only tasted a sip and ate some pig ears. When the Grand Empress Dowager saw this, she also picked up one and put it in her mouth. Refreshing, crunchy, and tasty. Previously, I heard that you could turn the off parts for pigs delicious. I didn't believe it at first, but now I finally believe it. Grandmother, you should try the braised pork intestine later. It's very delicious. The emperor quipped in. Definitely. Dad, try this shredded seaweed. It's obvious that Zhou Ying made it herself, so it will be great. Zhou Huaiming said as he picked up some shredded seaweed with his chopsticks and passed it to General Zhou. How do you know that Zhou Ying made it herself? Mingyu asked curiously. Isn't that simple? It's not on the menu. I suggest you add it to the menu as it's quite delicious and very appetizing. I can consider giving it to the guests as a side dish, especially for those who eat hot pot. Zhou Ying smiled and nodded. Cough, the hot pot you made is also delicious, but it's easy to get heaty. I don't dare to eat too much. The Grand Empress Dowager said. It's because of the mutton. It will be much better when you eat it with herbal and pear soup. Zhou Ying replied. Soon, the dishes began to be served one after another, especially the 8 treasures chicken, which was already prepared. After the banquet began, the first half was to comment and taste the dishes. In the second half, the Grand Empress Dowager carefully introduced Qin Weiwen, while Zhou Huaiming praised Zhou Huaiyu. Seeing this, Zhou Ying finally understood. To put it bluntly, this dinner was a blind date for the two of them. However, when she remembered that Qin Weiwen was from another city, she understood the reason why they were having a blind date. After dinner, Zhou Huaiming and Mingyu covered for the two of them, and the 4 went downstairs to shop around. It was bustling outside, with many hawkers and visitors. Guoguo crawled behind the window and looked outside. Mommy, there's a rabbit lantern over there. It's really nice. Let's go buy it. Grandpa, I want to buy a lantern too, Zhuang immediately shouted. Go, go. Yang Yang jumped up and down. Cough, I'll arrange for someone to buy it for you, but you'd better not go out. There are so many people outside. If you get lost, you won't be able to find us and become unwanted children. Zhou stood up, turned around, and walked out. Guoguo looked at Gu Qingrui unwillingly. Gu Qingrui shook his head and said, I can promise you anything else, but not this. There are too many people outside. If you fall over, you will be trampled into a pancake. Pancake! Yang Yang shouted. When the emperor saw this, he gave him a small piece of egg biscuit and stuffed it into his mouth. As for the Grand Empress Dowager and Gu Wanning, who were leaning against the window, they looked at the people and stalls on the street with great interest. The liveliness was a completely different world from the coldness in the palace. Soon, Gu Qingrui personally bought 3 lanterns. There was a rabbit that Guoguo liked, a tiger that Zhuang wanted, and a dog that Yang Yang liked. He even bought a few fried sugar cakes. With the lanterns, the 3 children finally became obedient. People started guessing lantern riddles on a platform not far away from the street. I'm sure it'll be even more lively tomorrow. Zhou looked at the academy students who had gathered together. Chapter 886 Lantern Festival, 5, yeah. There will be another general examination next year. I'm sure there will be many students coming to the capital in advance. Gu Qingrui nodded. Speaking of exams, Qingrui, are you still not planning to participate? The emperor asked. No, I'll just stay in my hospital or medical center. Moreover, I can give Qin ideas from time to time. When Gu Qingrui said this, he thought of the drawbacks of the 8 essays in the imperial examination. He looked at the emperor and asked, Emperor, have you ever thought of reforming the path of the imperial examination? Reforms? How? The emperor asked curiously. Gu Qingrui tried his best to be ignorant and said, I feel that the imperial examination is too monotonous. Just like agriculture and medicine, where mathematics is required by the Ministry of Revenue. Also, the knowledge of the construction of river banks and bridges when joining the Ministry of Works. This is especially true for building bridges. It won't be just a simple piling process, there must be many things to learn. For example, the local soil quality, the bearing capacity of the required materials, and so on. These required specialized and in-depth research. Only after hiring a scholar in this area would the bridge be more robust and durable in the future. It's just like lifting a palanquin. Why did it feel much lighter when it was carried to the outside and much heavier when it was carried to the inside? There's also the making of paper and soap. Although it's only a craftsman's skill, it uses plant ash and even soda powder. All of this can be summed up as a field of knowledge. The emperor seemed to understand. Does your majesty know a scale? Zhou asked. Of course I know a scale. The emperor looked at her inexplicably, not understanding what she wanted to ask. What's important is balance. After Zhou finished speaking, she went outside and asked for a ruler, a paperweight, and more than 10 pieces of cardboard of the same weight and size. Then, she placed the paperweight properly, balanced the ruler on it, and began demonstrating various kinds of balance in different positions and weights. This is the principle of the lever, she said as she demonstrated the principle of the lever to him. Previously, when you built a house with building blocks for Nan Nan, you seem to have mentioned the problem of the foundation balance, the Grand Empress Dowager suddenly quipped in. Yes, everyone knows that the foundation of a house is important, but a lot of knowledge is involved. Take this restaurant, for example. It must have a stable foundation, and many things must be considered when building the second floor. Especially the supporting pillars, they must be made of sturdy, durable mahogany wood. They were not chosen because they looked good but because they could support heavy weights. Otherwise, once the pillar breaks, the entire second floor will collapse. Are these things useful? General Zhou asked in confusion. Of course, they are useful. Paper and incense are all things that improve people's lives. Also, why is a bucket fine when water is in it but breaks when it turns to ice? Also, how do the wind and clouds we see form? If we know what's happening, could we change the weather with human power? Also, why wouldn't something fly into the sky when dropped? Why will it fall to the ground instead? Why would an adult and a child land on the ground simultaneously when they fell from the same height? If we want to develop into a strong country, we can't rely on the current imperial examination system. It's too singular and monotonous. Other than being an official, there are many other paths that people can take. Gu Qingrui said, "Oh." Chapter 887 Lantern Festival 6. Gu Qingrui did not continue to speak. Instead, he helped the three little fellows light their lanterns. When the Grand Empress Dowager saw this, she said, "Zhou Ying is so lucky. It's rare to see a man with such a good temper and love for children as Lord Gu. It's all right, the Emperor isn't bad either." Zhou Ying replied. "He's not bad, but he's careless and impatient." The Grand Empress Dowager glanced at Gu Wanning. It was obvious that she was talking to her. Gu Wanning naturally noticed it, too, and smiled. "The Emperor is just too busy. He's usually very patient." All right. You just protect him." The Grand Empress Dowager smiled. The Emperor and old General Zhou were seriously considering Gu Shengru's words. Especially the Emperor. Although he couldn't completely understand the meaning behind his words, he deeply understood agriculture. The correct planting methods and good seeds could increase the yield by a large margin. Like white potatoes, corn, sweet potatoes, wheat, and rice, especially wheat and rice. They had these two crops for a long time, but the yield back then was so low that it made people panic. If not for the introduction of high-yield seeds, the people probably would still not have enough to eat after the disaster. Also, weren't greenhouse vegetables developed after studying the traits of these crops? After 2 years of promotion and development, any capable family could already eat fresh vegetables all year round. He knew he had to pay more attention to this, as this was the Great Ming's foundation. As for the rest, he had to think about it carefully, otherwise, the country's development would stagnate. "Uncle, do you have any ideas?" the Emperor asked General Zhou. "I do have some ideas, but I don't know if they're mature or not." "Please speak." "Earning 1,000 gold coins is easy, but raising a general is hard. True famous generals are often born from battles of life and death. If generals could also be taught and nurtured in batches, then our situation, where it's difficult to find a general, would completely change in a few years. Therefore, I am thinking that when the imperial examination is ongoing, we can add on the martial examination to select a group of young people who are skilled in martial arts and war strategies to train." "Martial examination, huh? What do you think we should do, Uncle? How should we select these candidates?" The Emperor hesitated and asked. Although a general doesn't require much knowledge, his foundation must be solid. Therefore, I feel that he must be someone coming from an educated background. Those interested in becoming generals could join a unique academy after taking their entrance exam. They could start to practice martial arts, learn how to deploy troops, ride a horse, shoot arrows, and everything else on the battlefield. If they qualify, they will be scholars in this field. After that, a drill or mock battle will be held. The winner will be able to get a ranking and be able to join the government as a military officer like those current scholars. The Emperor nodded thoughtfully after hearing this. There was indeed a need for martial examinations. It was just that he had to control the quota well. Moreover, all aspects of this new martial subject had to be fleshed out. Otherwise, if he nurtured a spy, it would be a disaster for the Ming dynasty. He replied, "We'll discuss it at the morning court session tomorrow. If this notion is passed, we'll implement it immediately. Students might even be able to start attending this subject next year." General Zhou nodded and did not say anything else. The emperor had just picked up his teacup and was about to drink tea when a burst of cheers sounded from outside. "Wanning, what are they doing outside? It's so lively." He looked at Gu Wanning, who was leaning against the window. Chapter 888 Lantern Festival 7. They've finished guessing the riddles outside. Now, they're trying to answer the second verse of a poem contest. There was a student who answered correctly, and everyone was cheering for him. Gu Wanning replied, "If I didn't remember wrongly, that student is a member of our imperial clan, your third aunt's great-grandson. What's his name again?" "Oh, right, his name was Xing Yuan. I heard that he's pretty smart and already a high scholar at such a young age." After the emperor heard it, he had no impression of the student, but he still knew his third aunt and remembered this name. The Xing family had many people in their family. Unfortunately, the Xing family was a legacy of the previous dynasty and was suppressed by his royal grandfather's generation, so they gradually withdrew from the court. He wouldn't mind letting them re-enter the court as officials if they were willing to serve the country. Thinking of this, he leaned over and listened carefully. "Young man, you're very talented. Please listen to my next question." The first verse. "The earth is happy, and heaven is happy, at the Lantern Festival." After a pause, a voice still in puberty replied calmly and confidently, the second verse. "The lights and the moon shine, exchanging glows in the peaceful spring." There was another round of cheers. The last question. The first verse. "The lights and the moon shine, celebrating the three festivals with glee." Second verse. "Flowers and trees are flourishing, as we celebrate the same spring." With waves of cheers, the emperor also smiled at the bright little guy. In the end, Xing Yuan won the reward of 100 taels of silver and left with the applause of a group of people. Next were songs about the Lantern Festival, as many lanterns were sold at the store. As the festival continued, the crowd dispersed slowly in all directions. Help! My shoes! Stop, stop! You're taking my bag! My child, my child! Return my child to me! Do you need me to inform the soldiers outside? Gu Qingrui put Guogua down and said, "No need. When it gets dark, the 4 city gates will already be closed. If there really is a criminal, not one of them will be able to escape." The emperor smiled. That confident smile made Zhou understand that tonight was not just a blind date. He was probably catching someone. Thinking of this, she spread out her divine sense and looked outside. No one knew who had started it, but the entire street was in chaos now. Many small merchants and hawkers on the side had their stalls smashed. Many people were squeezed to the ground, causing a stampede. Zhou was looking for the source seriously, locking onto a few people. They were in different areas, but their method was the same, creating chaos. At the same time, a few women and even children began to abduct the girls who were alone, especially those who were 16 or 17 years old. When she saw this, Zhou didn't alert them because she realized that Heartwarming and the other 3 had already set their eyes on one of the women. Soon, the soldiers appeared and calmed everyone down. They also sent the people who were trampled to the medical center. Fortunately, no one died. After the streets were restored to order, many people went home, so the streets became quiet. The old man who sold the lanterns sat on the chair and cried. In order to attract people, he especially took out 100 taels of silver as a reward for the poem contest. He did not expect that, in the end, he would be unable to recuperate his cost. Zhou shook her head when she saw this. She did not know what to say. About an hour later, Heartwarming and the others walked in. Heartwarming, have you caught him? The emperor asked. Chapter 889 Little Ancestor, we caught them. We sent all of them to the police station. Heartwarming said. It looks like my wish won't come true. I'll need to trouble you to interrogate them personally tonight. If it's just human traffickers, they'll be executed tomorrow. If there are people behind them, dig them all out. Yes. The two brothers looked at each other, then turned around and left. Everyone, let's go back too. The three children are also sleepy. When everyone heard that, they immediately stood up and followed him out. All the guards, including Lin Etienne and the others that Gu Qingrui had sent earlier, showed up at their restaurant. They escorted old General Zhou, Mingyu, and her son back to the manor. Later, they sent the emperor and his entourage back into the palace. Meanwhile, Gu Qingrui and his family returned home. After some trouble coaxing Guogua to sleep, Gu Qingrui asked Mrs. Lin to bring Guogua to her room. It's time to test it out, Zhou said with a smile. I hope Guogua is not going to make a fuss tomorrow morning. Ever since they suggested that Guogua sleep with her nanny, they would hand her over to Mrs. Lin to take care of every time she took a nap during the day. With a buffer, she would not be so resistant to sleeping alone again. If she's not ready, we will continue to prep her. Now that Guogua is a big girl, we should get ready for another one. Gu Qingrui smiled. I knew you were up to nothing good. Zhou rolled her eyes and went to find Kuei Hua and Qiuxiang for something. Knowing they had returned home, she washed up briefly and returned to her room to do her things. This time, Zhou focused on the western continent and found it was still not raining. There were fewer clouds this time, and the new king was fretting in his study. If the drought continued, their harvest would be in trouble. Zhou saw that the clouds in the sky were quiet and did not move. She tried to use her spiritual sense to push a small cloud to the side and hit a large one. Sure enough, with a flash of lightning and a burst of thunder, it began to rain quickly. Unfortunately, the rain stopped in less than 15 minutes. Zhou suddenly felt a little defeated, as it seemed that she was still powerless. She could only try as much as possible. She tried again. After feeling that she was getting tired, she withdrew from the western continent. It just so happened that the various grains in the space had ripened. After harvesting them, she planted many white potatoes, sweet potatoes, and sesame seeds. The remaining land was planted with some cotton. After she was done, she put away the wild duck eggs and preserved them. When she finished her work, Gu Qingrui also finished slaughtering many cows, sheep, pigs, and donkeys. Zhou stored them all in the storeroom in one go. Wait a minute. Gu Qingrui saw that she was about to leave and quickly stopped her. What's wrong? Is there more? No. Leave some pork belly for me. I want to fry some dried pork belly. Let's do it tomorrow. It's getting late, and I'm sleepy. Zhou yawned after she finished speaking. Gu Qingrui saw she was in low spirits, so he said nothing more. Instead, he took her to take a shower and quickly exited her interspace. Looking at Zhou, who fell asleep in seconds, Gu Qingrui's face was disappointed. Then, he tucked her in and hugged her until he fell asleep. The next morning, the two of them were woken up by Guoguo's banging on the door. Gu Qingrui immediately sat up and said with a depressed expression, "Babe, we're not raising a daughter. We're raising a little ancestor. And you said you want another one, let's settle this first." After Zhou finished speaking, she stood up, took her clothes, and began to put them on. Chapter 890 Negotiations. Gu Qingrui heard the banging getting louder and louder, so he quickly put on his clothes and went to open the door. As soon as the door opened, Guoguo ran in. She climbed onto the bed and asked, "Mommy, Nanny said you were sick. Is that true?" Zhou was stunned for a moment. She coughed dryly and said in a deep voice, "Ahem. Mommy caught a cold. I was afraid that I would pass the illness on to you, so I let you sleep at Nanny's place." "Did Guoguo sleep well last night? Did you cry?" "No, Guoguo is a good girl." "Is that so? What a good girl. Go play with your father first. I'll braid your hair after folding the blanket. Let's go. Daddy will bring you to wash your face first." After Gu Qingrui finished speaking, he brought her out. Guoguo turned around and glanced at Zhou, but in the end, she still obediently followed Gu Qingrui out. After Guoguo left, Zhou closed her eyes and climbed onto the blanket to nap for a while before tidying up. On the other end, Gu Qingrui finished washing Guoguo's face and asked with a smile, "Guoguo, isn't it much more spacious to sleep on the same bed as Nanny? You can roll around as much as you want. Nanny said that girls can't roll around when they sleep. That's not good." Guoguo raised her head and replied, "That's true, but is it more spacious when you sleep with Nanny?" Gu Qingrui guided the conversation. Guoguo immediately nodded. It was the same big bed, but she slept with Nanny. It was naturally more spacious. Then, she thought of something. She looked up at Gu Qingrui angrily. "Are you going to make me sleep by myself again?" Gu Qingrui secretly cursed. It seemed that it was not a good thing for a child to be this smart. He smiled and said patiently, "Why would I? You're my daughter. Why would I chase you away? But you're getting bigger and bigger, and the three of us are getting more cramped in the same bed. If we sleep separately, you'll sleep comfortably, and we'll sleep comfortably too. Daddy can sleep by himself. Previously, I slept with Mommy." Guoguo replied. Gu Qingrui looked at her serious expression and did not dare persuade her anymore. Instead, he said, "Why don't we give and take? When Daddy is at home, he will sleep with Mommy. When Daddy is not at home, you can sleep with Mommy. How about that?" Guoguo hesitated for a moment before shaking her head. She realized that her father had been at home every day recently, meaning she had to sleep alone every day. Gu Qingrui immediately turned around and sighed. "Sigh, I'm so sad. Guoguo doesn't even like Daddy anymore. She only likes Mommy." Guoguo looked at his pitiful appearance and was stunned for a moment. She went forward and held his arm. Then let's swap every day, okay?" "Really?" Gu Qingrui turned his head and asked. "Yes." Guoguo nodded. "You can't change your mind." Gu Qingrui extended his pinky and said. Guoguo smiled and curled her pinky. Zhou, who was in the room, shook her head. "How shameless, tricking a 3-year-old child." "No, technically speaking, it's only been 2.5 years. However, she didn't care anymore. In order to make it easier to enter the inner space, she couldn't bring Guoguo along anymore." After breakfast, Zhou went to the restaurant to check if there were any problems with the operation of the two restaurants before teaching them new recipes. She didn't expect to find a problem. Unexpectedly, to save trouble, they had prepared many dishes in advance. However, when it was time to make them, the ingredients were no longer fresh, especially the leafy vegetables. After being soaked in water for a long time, the taste was naturally not as good as the fresh ones. Chapter 891 Princess Shi-shan arrives. Zhou reprimanded the two managers and made them promise they would not mistreat the ingredients before letting them go. 2 days later, Grassland Taste Restaurant launched pork tripe stew chicken, a famous dish that combines pork and chicken. Many people immediately praised it, and the restaurant's business returned to its booming state. On the night of the 20th, Zhou saw that Gu Qingrui was not in high spirits after he returned home. She immediately got up and asked, "What's wrong? What's not going well?" "Nothing. Do you still remember the group of human traffickers we caught on the 15th? Gu Qingrui sat down and asked. "I remember. Is there a result?" "Yeah, this matter has involved many things. Those human traffickers are genuine and specialize in recruiting talents for the various red chambers. However, it is not as simple as that for them to enter the capital this time. They were hired. Hire. For the upcoming consort selection." "That's right, and there's more than one person involved. The Emperor has decreed that anyone who is involved with human traffickers, no matter who they are, will be exiled to the northern lands. Any women involved have their heads shaved and become nuns. Furthermore, all women within 3 generations of the clan would be disqualified from the selection. This time, the families of 3 officials were implicated, and the Emperor demoted them by 3 levels. Well done. Those scheming and unscrupulous people should have their hopes crushed. Indeed, if such a person enters the palace will not be peaceful." Gu Qingrui reminded her, "I heard that on the 25th, the princess of the northern continent will arrive in the capital with tributes. At the end of the month, the princess of the western continent would also arrive. Tell the servants and the residents and the people in the restaurant not to get into conflict with their people. You can report it to the Emperor directly if it gets too ugly. The final result will be decided by the Emperor." "Don't worry, I will." When Zhou said this, she thought of Gu Wanning in the palace and wondered if she had ultimately let go. In the blink of an eye, it was the day that the princess of the northern continent would enter the capital. Zhou brought Guogua into the restaurant early in the morning and found a private room to wait for her. She wanted to see how the princess behaved and her temperament. Not long after they sat down, the sound of horse hooves could be heard. The people from the Ministry of Rites who were waiting at the city gate came forward and said, "The son of the virtuous prince, Yang Zhang, and the Minister of Rites, Qin Ji, welcome Princess Shi-shan, Sovereign King Ku, and the various envoys. Thank you for your hard work." Sovereign King Ku, who was walking at the front, dismounted and said, "Please come with us. The official servants have been prepared. You can settle down and rest for a day. Tomorrow morning, you can enter the palace to meet the Emperor." After saying that, the two led the horses from both sides and mounted them. "It'll have to trouble the 2 of you to lead the way." After Sovereign King Cook finished speaking, he mounted his horse and entered the city. Behind him were more than 10 guards on horseback. Then, the prince's carriage arrived. It was a simple carriage, with just an additional frame erected on the carriage. However, many things were hanging from the carriage. There were copper wind chimes, beautiful leather, and some unique northern continent ornaments. As for the princess, she was wearing a red riding suit with white fur and a red hat with white fur. The princess was fair and beautiful. She had big peach blossom eyes, an oval face, and a high nose bridge. She was a rare beauty. However, because of their race, their cheekbones were much higher, somewhat ruining her overall beauty. Then there was her skin color. Perhaps it was because she had been battered by the wind and sand, her skin color was a little darker and yellowish. Chapter 892 Gift List. As soon as Princess Shi-shan entered the city, the commoners watching the commotion by the side sized her up curiously. Some were curious, some were praising, and some were picky. However, most of them still praised her. Zhou paid close attention to the princess' expression and found a smile on her face from beginning to end after entering the city. She even waved at the people from time to time. Not only did her eyes not show any resistance, but she would also take time to curiously size up the buildings on both sides from time to time. Other than amazement, there was joy in her eyes. Well, it seemed she was willing to marry over, and she looked very satisfied. Could it be that she had seen the emperor? When the emperor negotiated on the northern continent, he stayed there for over half a month. There were bound to be members of the royal family who would take a liking to him. Behind the princess was a carriage full of her luggage, and beside her were some servant girls and women. It was obvious that they were her dowries. Finally, there were about 2,000 soldiers, and they were escorting these carriages from the city gates to the emissary building. After they left, Zhou looked at Guogua and asked, "Is Princess Zhishan pretty?" "Not as pretty as mommy, she's tanned," Guogua said. "You're really my good daughter. Tell me, what do you want to eat today?" "I'll allow it." Zhou smiled. I want to eat the crystal dumplings. Also, the green onion pancake." Guogua replied excitedly. "All right, add on another serving of egg loofah soup." Zhou asked someone to serve the dishes and ordered 2 more side dishes. After the mother and daughter finished eating, they went home. Because the emissary arrived from the northern continent, the next day was a grand court session. Gu Qingrui did not escape the fate of attending the court session. After he left, Zhou did not sleep back out of curiosity. Instead, she opened her divine senses and looked into the palace. First, it was the same as usual. The morning court session was held first, and many decisions were passed. The old general was promoted to duke, and the son of King'an, Xiaoheng, and 2 other generals were in charge of selecting martial examinations and constructing its academy. However, each prefecture only had 1 academy and could only carry 50 students. Finally, Eunuch Qian called in the northern continent diplomats who were waiting outside. Other than Sovereign King Ku, there were 2 other ministers, 1 civil and 1 military. They stepped forward and bowed after the 3 of them entered the main hall. "Long live our emperor! Long live! Long live!" When the emperor heard their awkward shouts, he felt good. It was even better than hearing King Hui call him emperor. Firstly, it was because he had defeated the former ally of King Hui. Secondly, the northern continent, the troublemaker who had been harassing the Ming dynasty for many years, finally surrendered. "Please get up." "Thank you, Emperor." The 3 of them stood up. "This is the list of tributes that my brother asked me to bring. Please accept it, Your Majesty." Sovereign King Cook handed over a list. "The king of the northern continent is too polite." The emperor smiled. However, he still opened the gift list and quickly glanced at it. Other than the white rustic potato seeds he had asked for previously, there were also many furs, precious herbs, and some treasured gems. After that, he asked Eunuch Qian to give them his gift in return. Naturally, it was the seeds of the sweet potato and corn. There was nothing else. After a few polite words, Sovereign King Kut saw that the emperor did not mention anything about the marriage and asked, "I wonder what the emperor thinks about the marriage. What does Princess Zhishan think? Will she marry me or a member of the royal family?" The emperor asked in return. Chapter 893 Princess Jiaro Hearing the emperor's words, the members of the royal family immediately perked up their ears. To be honest, the princess of the northern continent held high status, but they did not want to marry her. After all, she had a special status and could not be treated lightly. They did not want their household to be in turmoil. Of course, with you, the emperor. Ever since Zhishan met the emperor last year, she has fallen in love with you. Sovereign King Ku replied. After the officials heard this, they all looked at Sovereign King Ku in surprise. No one had expected him to openly announce Princess Xishan's thoughts to the public in the imperial court. The emperor coughed uncomfortably. Of course, he also knew that the northern continent was much more open than the Ming dynasty, so he didn't care about it and said, "You know, the consort selection is about to start. After the selection ends, let's announce it together officially. You siblings can have fun in our country for the time being. After all, once you enter the palace, it will be difficult to leave. Thank you for your understanding, Emperor." After hearing this, the sovereign king's heart finally settled down. Zhou could not be bothered to look anymore. She glanced at Gu Wanning and saw she was coaxing Yang Yang to get out of bed with a sincere smile on her face. Knowing that she had thought things through, she was relieved. Princess Jiao of the Western continent arrived at the end of the month. Although this princess was also smiling, there was no trace of happiness in her eyes. Instead, there was a hint of hatred. This made Zhou take this matter to heart. That night, she told Gu Qingrui about this matter. "I'm sure this person isn't easy to deal with. She'd better not cause any more trouble. We just defeated the Western continent. Perhaps her relatives were killed by King Ning and the others. Pay attention to her at night. If she really has evil intentions, we won't keep her. Otherwise, if she makes a move on the children, it will be a big problem." "I will." By the way, the doctors who have been transferred from all over the country to learn suturing techniques have already arrived in the capital. I have to start teaching the day after tomorrow, and I'll come home much later than usual. You and Guogua don't have to wait for me for dinner. Got it. You have to take care of your health, too. I will. The next morning, the envoy of the Western continent, General Bai Yang, presented the list of gifts. When the court session ended, the emperor also informed them that the consort selection would officially begin the day after tomorrow, which was the 2nd day of February. That day, Princess Xishan and Princess Jiao would also be heading into the palace to meet the Grand Empress Dowager and the Empress. After Zhou received the news, she monitored them that night. She just so happened to see Princess Jiao beating a maid up. Maybe it's because of habit, or perhaps it's because she's afraid of attracting any attention. The maid tightly clenched her teeth, not daring to make any sound. However, cold sweat was dripping down her face and body from the pain. Zhou was reluctant to watch, but she didn't stop it. If possible, she might be able to find the source of Princess Jiao's hatred from the maid. When the maid fainted, Jiao stopped with a lingering feeling and said, "Someone, come." 2 women dressed in the same Western continent attire immediately came in when she spoke out. Without Princess Jiao's command, they skillfully carried the maid out and threw her into a nearby room. General Bai Yang, who had just returned from chatting with Sovereign King Ku, saw the maid being carried out. He immediately went over. The 2 other maids were startled when they saw him, but they still greeted him. "General Bai, greetings." Bai Yang ignored them and went forward to take a look at the maid. When he saw that she had already fainted, he turned his head and asked the 2 women, "Is it the princess again?" Chapter 894. The consort selection begins. The 2 women met each other's gaze, an unspoken understanding passing between them. They stayed silent and simply bowed their heads in acknowledgement. Bai Yang, recognizing their silence, addressed them sternly. "Do you realize where you are? Have you considered the consequences if someone dies here and the great Ming officials investigate? If you value your lives," he continued, "persuade the princess to accept her fate and marry the emperor. Otherwise, none of us will be spared, and you yourselves might even die alongside the princess." Following his admonition, Bai Yang arranged for the imperial physician attending their party to tend to the injured maid. He then personally approached Princess Gyra's chambers and knocked on her door. Upon answering the door, Princess Gyro offered him not even a single glance. Turning away, she returned to her seat and said, "If your purpose is persuasion, spare yourself the effort. Have you ever considered the potential repercussions?" Bai Yang pressed. "Repercussions?" scoffed the princess. "I am a mere pawn, discarded and forgotten. As long as I find personal contentment, the rest is of no concern to you. The lives of millions on the Western continent rest upon your shoulders." "Wrong," she countered. "Only the Western continent royal family's fate is concerned. The ordinary populace. The great Ming Emperor wouldn't dare mistreat them." "You're being petty," Bai Yang exclaimed. "Exactly. Kill me if you dare. Just like you had slain Captain Su. You are beyond saving." The moment you ordered Captain Su's execution, Princess Gyaro stated with a chilling smile, "You should have expected my revenge. But rest assured, I will fulfill the marriage pact." Witnessing the icy defiance in her eyes, Bai Yang shivered. He was unsure whether this marriage would go well or not. Clearly, a serious discussion was necessary. Turning away, he spoke with a heavy heart, "Look after yourself." He then summoned the other envoys, informing them of Princess Gyra's predicament. "What are your thoughts on this matter?" "At this point, we have no choice but to see it through," one official conceded. However, why the sudden shift in her demeanor? "It's simple. Back on the Western continent, substitutions were possible. With her arrival in the capital and her identity revealed, changing princesses would be impossible. We must act swiftly," a third interjected. "Let's send a letter to the king. We cannot bear the responsibility if unforeseen circumstances arise." "Agreed," Bai Yang concurred. "I will dispatch a messenger immediately." Zhou Ying, piecing together the events, understood the situation. Princess Gyaro clearly harbored a prior love interest, tragically eliminated by the king for the sake of the marriage pact. This ignited a deep-seated hatred within the princess, directed at the Western continent royal family and potentially at the emperor. With this revelation, Zhou Ying sighed in relief. Bai Yang was more fearful than they were and was determined to ensure her safety. Then, their situation wouldn't be quite as precarious as it initially seemed. The day of the consort selection arrived. After breakfast, the streets bustled with activity as carriages streamed towards the palace. Following the customary luggage inspection, the women entered the palace alongside Princesses Shi Shan and Princess Gyaro, who, to Zhou Ying's surprise, engaged in lively conversation, seemingly on good terms. Upon entering the palace, they proceeded directly to the Grand Empress Dowager's quarters, where the Emperor and Empress were also present. The two princesses offered their respects, and the Grand Empress Dowager, her voice warm and welcoming, replied, "Please rise. You two have traveled a long distance. Do you find life in the Great Ming agreeable?" Chapter 895 Meeting Face to Face. In reply to the Grand Empress Dowager, "It's pretty good. Great Ming's delicacies are much more varied than those of the northern continent. I've gained a few pounds after eating these few days." Princess Shi Shan smiled. All right, as long as you like it. If you need anything, just let the people from the Ministry of Rites know. They will help you prepare everything." The Grand Empress Dowager looked at her lively and innocent appearance and replied with a smile. After that, she asked Mrs. Liu to prepare tea and snacks for them. As for Princess Gyaro, she only smiled the entire time and didn't say anything. She sat down with Princess Shi Shan and started drinking tea. The Emperor and the Grand Empress Dowager looked at Princess Gyaro with a lukewarm expression and were somewhat displeased. However, no one said anything. Instead, they asked them about the situation in their hometowns, including the local customs. The emperor even introduced them to the Great Ming situation. As they talked about wine and finally brought up the Grassland Taste restaurant. Ji Shan's eyes lit up when she heard this. The dishes at Grassland Taste restaurant are great, especially the beef and mutton. They're even more delicious than the beef and mutton we usually eat. Oh right, that Buddha jumps over the wall soup is really too delicious. Unfortunately, there's no preferential treatment at all. I even had to send people to queue for 2 days to get one. To tell you the truth, even if we wanted to eat it, we would have to order it a day or 2 in advance. Their boss is doing this for fairness. Otherwise, with so many officials in the capital, wouldn't it be chaotic if the high officials suppressed the low officials and the low officials suppressed the commoners? So I feel that this reservation method is great for everyone. Why won't they make more? It is said that there are 2 reasons. One is because of the ingredients. There are a lot of sea products inside, and there is a shortage of them in winter. Without a reservation limit, it will not be enough for everyone. Also, it takes half a month to prepare that pot of soup from start to finish. If they need to prepare too much, they won't be able to handle it. Oh, it's that troublesome. Yes. It said that dozens of ingredients are needed for 1 pot of soup. Oh my God, the person who invented this dish is really amazing. Indeed. If Miss Show dares to claim that she's second in terms of food, no one would dare claim that they're first. Even the royal chef can't compare to her. Miss Show, who is it? She doesn't sound very old. She's Marquis Enless' wife and also the Empress' cousin-in-law. I'll introduce you to her if there's a chance in the future. Really? That's great. The 2 of them chatted for more than 2 hours. After the Grand Empress Dowager asked them to stay for a meal, she let them out of the palace. After they left, the Grand Empress Dowager looked at the Emperor and Empress and asked, "What do you think of them?" Princess Ji Shan looks innocent and passionate at the moment. In my cousin-in-law's words, she's a foodie with no bad intentions. Princess Jia Ro is very unpleasant. She always has a cold and indifferent look on her face, as if someone owes her 1,000,000 taels of silver. Gu Wanning replied. Indeed, Jiaro is obviously against the marriage alliance. Otherwise, she wouldn't be so cold to us. The Grand Empress Dowager looked at the Emperor. Pay more attention to the Western continent. Don't let them cause any more trouble. Don't worry, Imperial Mother. I'll keep an eye on them. The Emperor nodded. After that, he instructed the Grand Empress Dowager to keep an eye on the consort selection and went to the study to get busy. When he was almost done, the Emperor asked eunuch Qian to invite King Ning over to dinner. 7th brother, do you remember Princess Jaro? The Emperor asked after the meal. Chapter 896 How embarrassing. King Ning was stunned for a moment. He remembered that Princess Jaro was the marriage partner of the Western continent and quickly asked, why? Did something happen? It's hard to say. I feel Princess Jaro has something on her mind and doesn't want to marry. So I want you to help me analyze whether this is her personal intention or someone else's. Or perhaps we left behind some grudges when we attacked the Western continent. There shouldn't be any hatred. The king of the Western continent, chosen by my younger brother, is the mortal enemy of the original king. After he ascended the throne, he either killed or imprisoned the original direct descendants of the royal family. Moreover, there was another drought on the Western continent last year. Even if the king had any intentions, he would not implement them so quickly. Thus, I feel if there is a problem, it should be with Princess Jaro. Why don't I go and sound her out? King Ning asked. Go. If Princess Jaro is not willing to marry, it is fine. I will not allow a woman with ulterior motives to enter the palace. I understand. Oh, right, you only have one main consort right now. Do you want to fill in all the secondary consorts in this selection? King Ning hesitated for a moment before shaking his head. Forget about the secondary consort. It's better to choose a concubine. He was satisfied with his consort and did not want to share her power. However, her attention was now on the child, so she could find someone to serve her. Alright, take note. If there's anyone suitable, go to Imperial Grandmother and let her know. Yes, if the Emperor has nothing else, I will take my leave. The Emperor nodded. After he left, the Emperor said to Eunuch Qian, tomorrow, you go to the various imperial houses and gather the names of the children of the right age who need to marry. This time, we will hold the selection for them. What about you? There's plenty to go around. Let's take it slow. The palace is not in a hurry to add so many people. Yes, this old servant will remember it. After Eunuch Qian finished speaking, he served him tea and left. The emperor then began to approve the memorials. On the other end, other than staring at Princess Jaro occasionally, Shou Ying was also checking on the situation on the western continent. Unexpectedly, after entering February, a cold spring came. It was snowing, and it seemed to have been snowing for a whole day and night. Although the drought in most areas had been alleviated, the sudden change in the weather weakened many people's bodies. All of a sudden, many caught a cold. When Shou Ying saw this, she simply took advantage of the cloud cover in the sky to push it, relieving the drought on the western continent. At the same time, she also sent many medicinal herbs to the various state capitals to treat the viral cold. After finishing her work, she returned to the villa and went to sleep without even showering. Gu Qingrui was done with his work. When he found her and saw her pale face, he knew what was going on. He sighed and wiped her face. He tucked her in and went to the study in the Mother Goddess Temple to read. After the two left the interspace the next day, they heard Qiuxiang calling at the door. Only then did they realize that the sun had risen. The two of them changed their clothes and immediately went out. Master, Mistress, Princess Mingyu is here. She is playing at young Lattice Place. Qiuxiang lowered her head and reported. Prepare some water for washing up and some food for us. Gu Qingrui said. After she left, he looked at Shou Ying and whispered, how embarrassing, no. I hope you won't take risks again in the future. This is an opportunity we can't miss. I'm also doing this to benefit tens of thousands of people. Shou Ying pushed him away playfully. Chapter 897 Shopping. After washing up, Shou Ying went to the side room and asked Mingyu, why are you free to come and play today? I wish, but I'm looking for you to go shopping with me today. I need to help my eldest uncle prepare a few sets of jewelry as betrothal gifts. Mingyu replied. So it's finally decided. Is it that, Miss Ye? Yes, it's settled after all parties are satisfied. That's good. That girl doesn't seem to talk much and is generous in her ways. You guys should get along. It's not bad, but from what I heard, they'll still have to return to the border after they get married. I don't think they'll have many opportunities to get along. Back to the border. Isn't the northern continent already a vassal kingdom? There shouldn't be a need for Brother Zhou to guard it. It is likely they will only partially retreat the troops. I'm not sure about the specifics. I see. We likely have to see their attitude before we retreat our troops. Shou Ying said. We're about to have lunch, let's eat together. You guys eat. We came over after eating. Mingyu shook his head. Guogua, go eat dinner, Shou Ying said. Mommy, I've eaten. You guys eat. Alright, you take Zhuang along and have fun. I'm going to have lunch. After lunch, Gu Qingrui went to the clinic first, followed by Zhou Ying and Mingyu going shopping. As for Guogua and Zhuangzhuang, they were left in the manor with their nannies. Zhou Ying and Mingyu first went to a cloth shop and ordered 2 sets of spring clothes each. At the same time, Zhou Ying also sent someone to a manor to order 2 sets of spring clothes for the servants before going to Tsuiwei restaurant. This lowly one greets Princess Mingyu, Marquis Madame and Lo. When the manager saw them enter, he immediately approached them with a smile. Manager Miao, you're too polite. Did you release a new set of jewelry this year? Mingyu replied. Yes, but do you want gold or jade? Show us everything except the silver ones. Alright, please follow me upstairs. Let's talk in a private room. After the manager finished speaking, he brought them upstairs. Princess Jiaro, who was strolling by the side, looked at the backs of the 2 people and thought of the Grand Empress Dowager's words. Her eyes flashed, and after buying some jewelry she liked, she left with her maidservants. On the other end, Mingyu and Zhou Ying picked out a set of gold jewelry and a set of pink jade jewelry from here. The 2 of them then went to other shops to pick out a total of 6 sets before stopping. When the 2 passed by Grassland Taste Restaurant, they went inside for a simple meal before rushing back. Just as they were about to return to the residence, Zhou Ying felt someone was following them. She immediately spread out her divine sense to search the nearby area. Sure enough, he found a person dressed like a farmer hiding around the corner. What's wrong? Why did you stop at the gates? Mingyu looked at her. Nothing, I just suddenly remembered something. Let's go to the restaurant another day and talk more. After Zhou Ying finished speaking, she walked into the residence with her. However, she didn't retract her divine sense. She wanted to see what that person was up to. Soon, that person left and went to a small courtyard to change his clothes before hurriedly returning to the official station. Zhou Ying looked at the Western continent's clothes on him and was a little confused. She did not understand why he would follow her. However, she soon got the answer. That person looked for Princess Jiaro and reported, Princess, they visited a few jewelry shops. After that, they went back to Marquis and Le's residence. In that case, since Princess Mingyu didn't go home directly, then let's start with her. Princess, you can't. You can't succeed by murdering in broad daylight. Besides, she has guards by her side. Even if we succeed, we won't be able to escape. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.